YP, how are you guys? I think we better kill that audio. It's going to drive us crazy. So bear with us. You know, we're kind of getting our feet wet into this newfangled technology of going live, but hopefully you guys are viewing. We'll be able to see who is on here in a minute. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through a bit of AYP news, and then we're going to take a look at the photos that you guys hashtagged AYP Club. So in the news, AYP was number one.
Number one on Amazon, new releases. We've been climbing those charts up and down. So thank you guys for ordering, pre-ordering. We're super excited that it's doing so well. And Marc will be promoting the new book in New York.
I am going to be doing a free class at B&H. If anybody's in the New York area, you should come to it. It's going to be next Wednesday, May 10th at 4 p.m., 4 to 6 p.m. And you know what? What I'm doing is basically just taking a bunch of stuff out of the book and I'm going to present it. I'm going to cover some things that aren't in the book, but pretty much framed around the book. It's going to be really exciting. And if you are there, there's going to be some giveaways. Okay. We have our friends from Think Tank Photo who are giving us a cool signature bag. And we're going to hopefully get, are we still live or did we go off the air? Oop. One moment, please. Looks like we...
Yeah, I think
we're
still going.
Okay, we're back. So if you guys come to that, you might win one of those bags and you might win a SanDisk card. There's going to be some quizzes. If you get the answer right, you might win a card.
So there will be a test.
There will be a test. There will be a test. So B&H, New York. You can look it up where it is. It's the biggest camera store in the world, and 4 o'clock next Wednesday. Okay.
And like Marc said, we're trying out new software right now, so we don't know if we can see your YouTube questions if you're asking them, but ask them. And also, once this video goes onto our YouTube page, post any questions you have under it in the comment section, and that's what we'll answer next time. So while we try to figure all this out, thank you for bearing with us. And keep using that hashtag AYP Club. We had over a dozen entries, which is awesome. And Marc is going to go through and do an unofficial critique session on your photos. They're great, and we're excited to give you guys some feedback.
The first thing I want to say is everybody who entered, you won. Because the whole point of doing this, first of all, is get your work out there and let people see it and listen to what they have to say. You do not have to agree with it, and you do not have to change anything based on what anyone says, including me. So with that in mind, let's have a look. Okay, so we got to readjust our screen. Okay, and this comes to us from, I'm going to stick my glasses on here. You can see the name. And that's Point Lookout, New York. Okay, the colors are amazing. It's eye-catching, literally, and I love shooting things, the sun coming through things, so I have a lot of affinity for that. It's very strong composition. My only critique point is get rid of the sign. Since we have Photoshop, you could do that in either Photoshop or Lightroom really easily, only because it draws my attention. You want to get rid of things that split your attention. So you want the eye to go to the dominant point, which of course is the sun. So I would just say, go into Lightroom or Photoshop, get rid of it, and post it again. Let's see what it looks like. Very well done, though.
Awesome. Next one.
Next up. Okay, this is cool. This is looks like a long exposure in the ocean. I don't know if you're using an ND filter, but that's cool. My only suggestion here is I would bump up the contrast to give it a little more punch, and at the same time I would probably brighten it a little bit. It's you could do both of those. When you increase the contrast, it's going to make it even darker, so I would bump the exposure up, but good job.
Next one.
And we're these are all from the same person. Looks like you're out and about, and you're catching some action here. That's cool action. it looks like you like black and white, as I do, because we have 2 out of 3 of yours were black and white. Good.
And do you have a rule of thumb for when to use it? Like, didn't you say if the color doesn't add anything?
My rule of thumb with black and white is, yeah, if there isn't really any real reason for color to be there, then I generally go to black and white. But sometimes it's just more dramatic to use black and white. It's just really something that you feel.
It's moody.
It's a moodier, yeah, it's a little moodier. Okay. So those were 3 from the same person. Okay, I love that reflection.
The caption says, in honor of the wet weather we are having in Wisconsin. So she did the lighted puddle, which I love. I think that's cool.
That's great. And, you know, it's cool that you're looking, you know, instead of just looking up at what's, you know, in front of your face, you're looking down and seeing a different viewpoint. The reflection is interesting, and that's great. Good work.
Next one.
Okay, wow. So this is some pretty amazing sky, and you did some processing on that, obviously, because the sky doesn't normally get quite that vibrant. And I like the, you know, obviously the colors are amazing. I'm interested in what we're looking at here. I can't quite figure it out. Is it some trees that are burnt out? See,
yeah, they almost look like buildings, but it looks like it's actually trees.
They look like trees that were in a fire and got burnt out. So I like that because it makes me kind of, as you can see, I'm leaning into it. Anytime you can get your viewer to do something in relationship to your photo, they look at it more closely, they're drawn into it, that's a good sign.
Next one.
And yeah, now again, we've got what looks to me like the use of an ND filter, or you know, it's for sure a long exposure. It's a great technique. I love that. I love doing it, and I use it myself. It's, you know, either you had an ND filter or you were on a tripod and you just did a long exposure. That's called dragging the shutter, meaning use a long enough exposure so you get the motion. And, you know, it tells an interesting story of a little stream, it looks like. The colors are interesting too, because it's all brownish. The water is sort of brown. I don't know if you used a filter for that. Looks like in Lightroom maybe, or however you processed it. But it's subtle. It's not like an overkill. So that's interesting, because it could almost be the natural colors.
Yeah, it could. I feel like this is a big trend right now in photography, is slowing the water down.
Yeah. Well, that's just a great effect, because you get the, you know, if you took that at a 500th of a second, it would be kind of uninteresting. It would just be flat water. And this way we get to feel
dreamy about it.
Yeah, we feel kind of the rhythm of the water. So ND filters help do that. So that's possibly what you did. You might let us know. By the way, when you guys are hearing this, tell us, you know, your side of the story, like what actually happened at your end, because it would kind of fill in the data. All right. Now we have a series of these from John Koster, and I want to just say, you know, I looked at them, and he's doing a project of going around and shooting homeless people, I believe is what he said, at least that, or street people. You know, it takes a lot of courage to do that, so I got to hand it to you, John, for doing that. It looks to me, and Holly pointed this out too, like we have another light source. Either that, or there was light behind.
It could have been like a street light above his head, maybe too.
Could be. Let us know. I'm curious about that. And I'd love to hear your whole story, because you mentioned that you were doing a project. We've got a few more here that are along with that. Wow, this guy, that's pretty stark and stunning. My guess is that you use the clarity slider in Lightroom to kind of exaggerate. I'd like to know about that. The clarity slider, by the way, is a really cool slider. If you guys aren't using it, you should, because it's kind of like this little piece of magic. It will bring out the mid-tone contrast, which basically adds all that texture. So we see a lot of texture both in his face and his hair. Now, it goes both ways. You can use it in landscape photography to bring out texture in people's faces. Let's say you were taking a picture of your mom and you wanted to help make her look a little younger. You would slide it the other direction and it would soften her face.
Now, and is this a longer lens then to get that blurred background, or do you think that was done in?
I don't think so. I think he just used a shallow depth of field. And to me, it looks like a normal, I don't see like what looks like telephoto.
Okay.
And that's good. That also means you're getting close to people, which again requires some courage, and it's the way to do this kind of portraiture, not to back away. Because if you back away too far, you kind of lose the person. So well done, John, on getting right in there. There's another one. And this guy, wow. That really tells a whole story.
I love the brick background too. It's simple, but it's powerful. You get a sense of location.
Yeah. And again, I'm curious about your light source. If you have, to me, it sure looks like you've got some light on his face there. So tell us what the story is there, John. Keep up your project. I think that's great that you're going out there and just finding people and confronting them.
Well, on our last video, we had someone ask you, how do you go up to people? And so maybe, John, you could share your tips for going up to people as well, and how you get them to pose for you.
I know one very well-known photographer, Thomas Hawk, who does a lot of street photography. And he goes up and he says, look, for $1, I'd like to take your picture. And most people say, sure, why not?
Sure.
$1? $1. And so it kind of gets them, you know, willing to have somebody come in and take a photograph. Okay. And this is Anton, and this is Crane Creek Regional Park. It looks like, wow, you've either got like a polarizer here, or you are doing that in post. It's kind of hard to tell which. And it gives it an appearance, like when you first look at it, it looks like snow. And then you look more closely and you realize, well, that can't be snow because I'm seeing a lot of grass here. But it gives that kind of appearance like there's snow on the trees, which is really interesting. We have a couple more, I think, taken at the same time.
Or same style.
Yeah. So tell us what you're doing there. And again, that looks, obviously, that's not snow. And you're in the clouds, which is also really cool. And you know how important clouds are to add texture and dimension. It's in the book. I actually give you guys a little cloud guide and recommend an app. I didn't put it in the book, but I'll put it on my website that will tell you what the weather looks like. Like where we are right now is fogged in. So there's absolutely no dimension in the sky whatsoever. But that can be really helpful if you're going out and taking portraits, because it's like a built-in light box. It'll give you this soft light, even though it's, 2:30 here, 2:43, which normally wouldn't be a good time to take portraits. It could actually work. And I think that's it for today, folks.
I think we're going to wrap up and show them.
So, yeah, chance favors the prepared mind. Remember that. This was a photograph that I took many years ago. It's in the book. This is a metal plate version of it, which is kind of cool. I only have a couple of photographs I've ever done on metal. I did this because I wanted to put it outside, and the only way you could do that is on a metal plate. And you can see on the back it has a little hanger. I got this made at Bay Photo, which is the lab I use a lot, and I recommend the lab to you. If I'm not doing like a custom print, I'll go to Bay Photo, bayphoto.com. They have great customer service. In fact, I'm going to put a a link on my website so you guys can get a little discount. How's that sound? Okay, so we'll get rid of our little side screen there and see if there's anything else. You know what? Why don't we just take a breather here for a second and see if you guys had. We're going to switch over to our. We could actually just go over here, come to think of it. Now we don't need that software. We can go over here. If you guys have, let's see how many people are watching and if we have any questions. Okay, there's 15 of you guys out there. Hello, all 15 of you people. So if you have a question, throw it out right now, and I will try to answer it. Oh, here we go. So, these are some answers to what we were talking about. So let's see what we got. Somebody said hello from North Carolina. Someone, Life Camera Creation, just got your book. It's great. Thank you. I love it. Don't forget to give an interview or a review on Amazon. That would be great. And we've got somebody in Belfast. Wow. Let's have a Guinness. Okay. Last time I was in Belfast, I was meeting in a pub with one of your famous people, Van Morrison. How about that? That's a whole other story. Okay, so let's see. Do we have any questions here? What camera do you use, Patrick?
I think they were asking about the 700D, Canon 700D.
So Patrick answered it. And what else? Do we have any other questions? Or from Edmund, hello there. And we have another Dublin. Wow, we've got 2 people in Ireland. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And Amsterdam. Good-o, you guys. You're from all over the place. So I think this is kind of cool. You guys like this idea? Give me a thumbs up if you think we should keep doing it. And I definitely want to see you guys continue to post AYP Club. Hashtag that. Because I think this could become a regular thing.
You've got some questions. I want to know what camera is good for underwater photography.
Well, that's easy. I use a GoPro. Many years ago, there were no GoPros, and I used, Nikon made this camera called a Nikonos. And I used to shoot with that, but GoPros are so simple, that's what I use. You know, if you're taking really big professional photographs, you're going to want to get a housing, but that's expensive and it's a hassle. Why when you can use a GoPro?
And then what made you interested in taking photos?
You know, that's a good question. I grew up taking pictures. I don't know, it just seemed like I always was taking pictures. And then when I was 12 years old, I learned how to develop film and make prints in a darkroom, and that made me into a photographer overnight, literally. All of a sudden, you know, because in those days you would just take the roll of film and take it to the drugstore, and you'd get back these tiny little prints. They were really disappointing. You know, they're just snapshots, and all of a sudden I learned that I could take a picture like this, which did not look like this coming out of the camera. But the way I was able to print it, I made it into a silhouette. This was taken in the 8th grade, and it's still one of my better photographs.
I think it's interesting, you know, how your book talks about everybody's a photographer these days. You know, everybody's taking more photos, but are they good photos?
Yeah.
Do you have a suggestion or tip on, like, should you stop and realize you don't have to snap the shutter all the time?
Yes.
How do you go, you know?
That's a good suggestion. Okay, here's the deal. I come from the film days. You had 12 exposures, you maybe had 24 exposures, or you had 36 exposures. And then you had to change the film. And then when you were done with all that, you had to go home and develop it and then make prints out of it. So, you know, I only pressed the shutter when I thought I had something that I really was going to come away with. So I recommend that. Now with digital, you can take an infinite number of shots.
Yeah. Doesn't mean they're going to be better though.
Does not mean they're going to be better. Let's liken it to food. You know, you can make lots and lots and lots and lots of food. Does it mean that it's going to be a good meal? No. Or you could really put your attention on making one dish like really taste great. Like even like roast chicken. You could become a specialist at roast
the one
chicken.
thing you do really well.
And you do it really well. And you know, your friends come over and they go, wow, I really love your roast chicken. It's really great. Now, here's the thing. Somewhere between those 2 points, I think, is where we are in the digital age, where you can take a lot more pictures than you did in the film days, but you're still doing what I talk about in the book, which is you visualize the shot. You get your own idea. What do I want this photograph to look like, and what am I trying to say with it? And then you use the equipment that will match that. So, like if you're going to shoot underwater, you use your GoPro, or you know, you might use your iPhone depending on where you are and what you're doing. Whatever, you select the right equipment and then you capture it to try to find the essence of that story, and hopefully there's some emotion in it, there's something compelling about it.
Well, they're talking about that right now, which I thought was interesting. Patrick asked, have you ever thought of creating emotions through music? Like when you're shooting with some person and play a sad song, that starts to, you know, evoke that emotion out of them.
You know, it's funny. It's funny that you bring that up, because I was editing some videos. You know, I've done over 1,000 hours of interviews. You guys, if you haven't seen the rest of what's on my YouTube channel, make sure you do. Anyway, and I was preparing for this presentation of B&H. And so one of them was Matthew Jordan Smith. He's a fantastic celebrity photographer. I mean, he shot everybody. Oprah Winfrey. He is her favorite photographer.
Oprah.
Okay, that says a lot. So anyway, he said, you know, I asked him, I said, so he has this great line. He says, you don't want to just make people look good. You want them to feel good. I said, so what do you do to make people feel good? And he goes, music. Music on the set.
I have never even thought of that.
Get music, get it into a playlist. He tells these amazing stories about, you know, shoots that were dragging, and then all of a sudden he put on, you know, Aretha Franklin. He says everybody knows Aretha Franklin. And all of a sudden the whole shoot just like
dancing, laughing.
You know, it's just the pace of it picked up and bam. So yes, definitely using music in your shoots can help you bring out the emotion. We got some other questions here. What are they saying?
Let's see. You said when you imagine your picture, let's say it's a woman crying on the bench, would you wait for a girl till there will be a girl crying, or stage it? Oh, so like actually stage something you want to see happen, or wait for it to be true?
You can do it either way. Personally, I don't stage many photographs, but there's nothing wrong with doing that. I'm not going to say you can't do that, and you certainly are welcome to. I mean, what's a movie anyway? It's all staged, right? Is it objective is the word? It's all objective? Well, it's kind of your approach. So if you think, wow, today I'd like to go out and capture someone crying, you may not find them on the bench, right? So it's possible that you would have to stage that. But there's another interesting thing, which is, and this can happen so fast sometimes that you don't feel like you're visualizing it, but you see someone, and John's photographs are a good example of this. You see someone and there's all of a sudden you're drawn to them for some reason, like you see some hard living on their face, or you see something about their circumstance, and all you know is, I want to capture that emotion. You don't necessarily know even what is their emotion. Is it sadness? Is it hopelessness? Is it despair? You know, it could be one of those kind of really hard emotions, and you don't necessarily want them to be smiling, because that sort of flips them right out of that emotion. So somehow you have to make them feel at ease enough to not take away the actual emotion they're experiencing. And that has a lot to do with your interacting with people and making them feel comfortable enough so that they'll give you the real emotion.
Yeah. Another one. I'm turning 40 this year and decided to follow my dreams and become a photographer. It pressures me so much that I've wasted half of my life. I have so much to learn. Any advice? Thanks. Well, first, happy almost 40th.
I feel sorry for you. 40 years old.
It's young. It's the new 30, right?
I'm joking. I wish I was 40. Okay. So listen, it's never too late, ever, 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 ever. And you're entering at a great time. And bravo that you can make that change. So read AYP. And I'm not just saying that because I wrote it. Even if I didn't write it, I would think this is a great book. Mm-hmm. Because, and I'm getting a lot of feedback now that people have it. And many people I know who are really well-read photographers. Okay, I'm going to just give you one example. So I met with a friend of mine who had completed this huge college-level photography course. And he said, you know, I read your book, and basically you extracted everything that was really important out of that course and put it in the book. And the stuff that really wasn't that important, you didn't write about. Mm-hmm. And that was really my goal, was to, you know, make it so you have a complete handbook. It isn't something that you've got to go to 4 different books. But, you know, you're doing the right thing. So set some goals for yourself. And I talk about that in here too. You want to decide, and this is another point of visualization, what are you as a photographer? I mean, what kind of photographer are you? Because there's a lot of genres that you could pick from. But, you know, it's true with most artists that they're known for one genre. Even though, like, you take Picasso. This guy was amazing. He did paintings, he did sculptures, he did etchings. You know, he was all over. Anything, basically everything he touched was art. But what do we think of when we think of Picasso? We really think of him as a painter.
Yeah, right? I think that helps with the question of I have so much to learn. It does seem very overwhelming, very daunting if you want to be good at all the genres. But if you can decide, this is who I am, this is what I want, and you just become really good at that form. I mean, and you can be good in other ones, but you really focus on one. I think that'll take away this daunting task and pressure to be great at it all.
And exactly. And then you can perfect that one genre and then go from there. Chris Burkhardt, who I'm sure many of you have seen, he's got a huge presence on Instagram. I interviewed him in 2009, so that was quite a while ago, and he was really launching his career. But he became known for action and surfing and kind of environmental photography, you know, out in the kind of the action world. Mm-hmm. And he's really stuck with that, even though he's broadened it and now he's a filmmaker. That's kind of the core that people know him by, and that's really important.
He's willing to go places and do things that other people might not be willing to do to get the shot, which is another thing. You know, are you going to be that adventurous and go out there and really challenge yourself, or you know, like you said, you have to decide who you want to be as a photographer.
Totally, and just really perfect that. You know, Annie Leibovitz is another example. We know her as a celebrity photographer. She started off, we actually went to school together. She was a bit older than I was. Believe it or not, she wasn't studying photography, she was studying painting. And then started taking some photography classes at night. And then the Rolling Stone magazine was just getting started in San Francisco, so she became one of their photographers. And that just opened her career, because then she toured with the Rolling Stones, and she's an amazing celebrity photographer. But for her own work, she's really trying to get into, or has gotten into, landscape photography, which is a completely different genre. So, you know, there again, focus on one area, really get into it, and capture that and really learn it inside out. That's
well, you also say get to know your camera. You could read 1,000,000 books, but if you don't use your camera,
you got to get to know this thing, because you do not want to be fumbling when that, you know, there's that exact moment You want to be able to press the shutter and know that you got it. What else do we have?
What's your favorite focal length?
Probably around, I have a full frame sensor in my camera, which basically means it's the same size as 35 millimeter film. So all the focal lengths basically apply to what I would shoot with 35 millimeter. And it's about somewhere between 35 to 40 millimeters, probably, just slightly wider than normal.
And why do you like it?
I don't know, it just works for me. And sometimes it's just a matter of your own preference. And, it depends what you're trying to say. But I'm generally go a little bit wider than a normal lens.
Well, kind of on that topic, what are you trying to say? The question is, do you think photos can be as storytelling as video? So your images should say something.
Every picture should tell a story. Every picture tells a story. Remember Rod Stewart? It's true. And if it doesn't tell a story, there's not going to be a connection with your viewers. Now, video or movies, there's 24 frames per second, 24 images. And you've seen filmmakers who are just incredible at making every one of those frames gorgeous. So, the essence of filmmaking is being a good photographer. They still call it the director of photography. I like making films because you have a lot of other things that you can bring into it. So motion does, you can take a series of pictures and tell kind of a journalistic story.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you take a video, that's what you're doing. But you also can bring in music, and you can add effects. So it's a lot of fun.
I just read an article in Outdoor Photography about taking the wide shot, but going in with close-ups and telling the story that way too. You can piece something together with a couple different images that tells a story without words.
Well, we have an example of that in
AYP book.
In the AYP book, what do you know? So this is I don't know if you guys can see this. Florian Schultz, he's a phenomenal outdoor photographer. National Geographic, huge presence. So he gave an example of shooting this bear with 3 different focal lengths. And that's basically what you're talking about, Holly. So, this is like a 600, 400, 200. Same bear, same location. And he said, look, I recommend that you use every focal length that you can, especially when you're learning. And then you can go back and decide which one you want to use, but definitely capture it from a number of different focal lengths. Same thing is true with angles. Capture the photograph from various different angles. So I have, this Eiffel Tower picture, and like any tourist, I went to Paris and took a whole bunch of different pictures. I don't know where it is. And the funny thing was, I didn't even use this picture until I was putting the book together, and I had taken it in 2005. So it just sat on a drive, neglected. And I was putting the book together, and I needed a different picture of the Eiffel Tower. You know why? Because the one I was going to use had lights on it. It turns out you cannot use a picture of the Eiffel Tower at night.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me that. Yeah, I could take a look.
So it would actually open me to being hassled by the French government and possibly even fined. There it is. So I said, okay, I'm not going to use that picture. So I went back to my drive, looked at all these other shots I had of the Eiffel Tower. And, that was a completely different angle, right? I'd taken a lot that were straight on, and I really liked that picture.
It's totally different.
It's totally different. It's got a lot of detail in it, and it really works for me.
And the clouds, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple other questions. Your favorite place to shoot? Your favorite photo you've taken?
Wow. I don't know that I have a favorite place. I mean, I live in an incredibly beautiful area. It's called Carmel. Many artists and photographers have lived here, so it's kind of like a playground for art and photography.
And the ocean, and there's something about the ocean and the waves and the beach that you really can't. I mean, those are just photographic beauties by themselves. So
exactly. But I love shooting in Spain and Barcelona and in the Pyrenees.
Have you ever shot in Portugal?
I haven't been to Portugal. That's definitely on the list. Need to go there.
Bucket list.
Yes, it's definitely on the bucket list. Morocco's fascinating. It's just incredibly full of imagery. Africa. I like to shoot a lot when I travel, and I don't actually have a favorite spot. I just
wherever you are with whatever camera you have, right?
Wow, there's that amazing, So and there is something about just taking your area wherever you live and just taking a lot of photographs of it. I did that as a kid. That's how I started out. Obviously, I wasn't traveling around too much when I was 12 or 13, but I recorded a lot of events just in my own little town, at school and just around the immediate area.
Life Camera Creation asks, do you do any classes?
Yes. I'm doing one at B&H next Wednesday. You want to come to it? It's free, 4 o'clock next Wednesday. And I believe that we will schedule some classes over the summer. Again, what's great about our area is there's so many opportunities for photographs. I could literally walk out the door, 100 yards. We have one of the original California missions from about 1775, 200 yards away. And that's a great place to photograph. So stay tuned. I'll let you guys know.
And maybe we'll do one more and then wrap it up.
Yeah.
It says, how do you make boring subject places more interesting? Change in angles, focal length. Do you just go somewhere else if it's boring?
It depends, yeah. I mean, ultimately, something has to spark your interest. If it's boring you, it's definitely going to bore your viewer.
That's true.
So, you have to have some kind of inspiration. Now, there is something that happens, which I find very interesting. Like, you can click into the zone, and something magical occurs, because you can almost take a photograph anywhere and have it come out interesting. I say almost. If you're looking at it the right way, and that's what it really takes, is you're like looking for that photograph, and don't be afraid to take the ones that may not work. I mean, you just don't know, okay? But that inspiration comes from you, not from the environment. Isn't that interesting? I mean, the environment is doing whatever it's doing. It's you as a photographer that's going to find that point of interest. I think I'll leave you guys with that.
Something to think about over the weekend. Take some photographs. Continue to use hashtag AYP Club, and the next time we go live, maybe we'll be featuring your photographs. So be sure to use the hashtag and then maybe a little bit about the photograph.
Absolutely.
Why you took it.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, it's been so fun.
Tell your friends. Share the video. If you haven't subscribed, I think you're all subscribers, I would imagine, if you're tuned into this. But tell your friends to subscribe. Definitely get the AYP book. It's on Amazon. All you have to do is type in Advancing Your Photography. Boom, it comes right up. It's actually on sale on Amazon.
Awesome.
It's like 30% off. They do a thing, believe it or not, the more it sells, the lower the price goes. That's kind of cool. So it's a heck of a deal. Helps me help you. So
till next time.
Till next time.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you guys.